Hello. This is chapter 2 of the story I'm telling you. And I think I forgot to tell you that the title of this story is called The Little People. Okay. I read you chapter 1 the last time. I told you the story of chapter 1 last time. And we're talking about a little family. The story is about a family of little people that live under floorboards, because they're only as big as a pencil, remember? And there's 3 people in this family. There's the dad, the mum, and the little girl called Arrietty. And we learned a bit about where they live, and they live under the floorboards, and they store all the things that they pick up from the big house, and things that people don't need anymore, and then bring them back down underneath the floorboards and use them. So because they're so little tiny things that we don't really need anymore, like hair grips for our hair or matchboxes, they can be used for furniture or for clasps for the gates. Okay. I had a bit of a quiz last time, and there was a question, 3 questions I asked. And the first question was, number 1, what's the name of the dad? And the answer to that question is Pod. It's a funny name, but his name is called Pod. Okay, so that's the answer to question 1. Question 2 was, Arrietty's mum, Homily, sent her to go and get a vegetable to put in the soup that she was making. And the answer to question number 2 was a potato. So what vegetable did Arrietty go and get? It was a potato. Do you remember she rolled it along the dusty passageway, and her mum got cross with it because it got all dusty. And then the last question was, what does Arrietty like doing best, apart from looking through the grill out at the garden from underneath her floor? And the answer to that question number 3, was Arrietty likes reading. Remember, she reads, to us they'd be little tiny books, about as big as our thumb maybe, but to her they'd be great big huge books that she'd have to prop up on the floor and read, because she's only really little. Okay, so in chapter 2, Arrietty finishes reading, and she's going to help her mum finish off dinner, because they're waiting for Pod to come home from his borrowing. That's what they call it, when Pod goes up to the house where the people live, and he borrows things to bring back to the house so that they can use them for cooking and for making things. Okay, so sighing, Arrietty put away her diary and went into the kitchen. She took the onion ring from Homily and slung it lightly around her shoulders, while she foraged for a piece of razor blade. Really, Arrietty, exclaimed Homily, not on your clean jersey. Do you want to smell like an onion? Here, take the scissor. Do you remember? The scissor is what they use to chop things up. So it's a half of a teeny tiny little sewing pair of scissors, but they've only got one blade, and they use it like a great big chopping knife, because to them it's really big. Arrietty stepped through the onion ring as though it were a child's hoop, and began to chop it into segments. Your father's late, muttered Homily again. Oh, and it's all my fault, as you might say. Oh dear, I wish I hadn't. Hadn't what? Asked Arrietty, her eyes watering. She sniffed loudly and longed to rub her nose on her sleeve. Homily pushed back a thin lock of hair with a worried hand. She stared at Arrietty absently. "It's that teacup you broke," she said. "But that was days ago," began Arrietty, blinking her eyelids, and she sniffed again. I know, it's not you, it's me. It's not the breaking that matters, it's what I said to your father." "What did you say to him?" "Well, I just said, 'There's the rest of the tea service,' I said, 'up there where it always was, in the corner of the cupboard in the schoolroom.' So that's in the great big house. Upstairs there's an old schoolroom because there used to be children living in this house. Do you remember me telling you Aunt May is an invalid who stays in bed all the time?" "I don't see anything bad in that," said Arrietty, as one by one she dropped the pieces of onion into the soup. "But it's a high cupboard," exclaimed Homily. "You have to get up by the curtain. And your father at his age—" Oh, she sat down suddenly on a metal-topped champagne cork. "Oh, Arrietty, I wish I'd never mentioned it." "Don't worry," said Arrietty. "Papa knows what he can do." She pulled a rubber-scented cork bottle out of the hole in the hot water pipe and let a trickle of scalding drops fall into the tin lid of an aspirin bottle. She added cold and began to wash her hands. "It's that curtain," cried Homily. "He can't climb a curtain at his age, not by the bobbles." "With his pin he could," said Arrietty. "His pin! I led him into that one too. 'Take a hat pin,' I told him, 'and tie a bit of name tape to the head and pull yourself upstairs.' It was to borrow the emerald watch from her bedroom for me to time the cooking." Homily's voice began to tremble. "Your mother's a wicked woman, Arrietty. Wicked and selfish. That's what she is." "You know what?" exclaimed Arrietty suddenly. Homily brushed away a tear. "No? What?" "I could climb a curtain." Homily rose up. "Arrietty, you dare stand there in cold blood and say a thing like that?" "But I could borrow. I know I could." "Oh," gasped Homily. "Oh, you wicked heathen girl, how could you speak so?" And she crumpled up again on the cork stool. "So it's come to this," she said. "Now, mother, please," begged Arrietty. "Now don't take on." "But don't you see, Arrietty?" gasped Homily. She stared down at the table, at a loss for words, and then at last she raised a haggard face. "My poor child," she said, "don't speak like that of borrowing. You don't know, and thank goodness you never will know." She dropped her voice to a fearful whisper. "What it's like upstairs." Arrietty was silent. "What is it like?" she asked after a moment. Oh, echoing on the wood was a faint vibration, the sound of a distant click. "Your father!" exclaimed Homily. "Oh, look at me! Where's the comb?" Homily ran it through her hair and rinsed her poor red eyes, and when Pod came in she was smiling and smoothing down her apron. And that's the end of that chapter. It's a very short chapter today. So Arrietty is talking about borrowing, which is what they call going up to the house and picking up things that they might need. And her mum really doesn't want her to go because she wants to keep her safe under the floor where she'll never get into any danger. Okay. In the next chapter, we'll find out what Pod's been borrowing. So let's have 3 questions to think about for next time. Okay. So question number 1 is going to be, what vegetable was Arrietty chopping up? Okay. Just writing myself some notes. And number 2. What was it that Arrietty broke? Okay. So Arrietty, a few days ago, broke something that her mum was talking about, which is why she sent Pod off borrowing. Okay. And question number 3. What did Arrietty want to do that upset her mum so much? Arrietty said, I could go and do that. So what did Arrietty want to go off and do? Okay, so answers to those 3 questions we'll talk about next time. Hope you enjoyed that. Until next time, cheerio.